All right, so let's talk about demand. This is going to be a concept that we're going to come back to quite frequently in Unit 2. But I think it's an awesome place to start because you as the student and me as the teacher, we are consumers by and large throughout the day. Now, some of you may also be producers. You may babysit or do yard work or work for a company, but all of us consume, whether it's at Chick-fil-A, whether it's at Starbucks, whether it's at Best Buy, or whether it's on Amazon or even in Uber as a service, we all spend money and we are in the consumer world. Now, that said, a lot of times people have the wrong definition of demand, or they're thinking about only part of the definition of demand, and we must think about both parts to the definition of demand. For instance, your teacher would love nothing more than to drive to school in a Ferrari and look like the coolest teacher that you have. Unfortunately, that is me only thinking about one part of the definition. So please put this in your notes that demand is both your willingness and your ability to buy a good or service at a range of different quantities and prices. That is why, although I have the willingness to buy a Ferrari, I don't have the ability to buy a Ferrari. And that's kind of important. A lot of times we think of demand only as the willingness, and thus I may not have demand for something that I don't have the willingness for, but we also need to keep in mind the ability, which is an important second half of the demand definition. So let's pretend for just a second that I were there and I came in and I wanted to see who had demand for a set of items that I was going to auction off. Now, keep in mind, in order for people to have demand, they would both want the product I was selling and have the ability to pay me for that. Now, luckily, in today's day and age, there's Venmo, so that has helped me out in the past when we did this simulation. So let's pretend I came in and I said that I was going to sell a homework exemption pass that had to be redeemed by the end of the semester. This would allow you to not have to read a chapter or not submit answers to the chapter or not have to listen to a podcast, but you could choose. You wouldn't have to sit down and do the work. If you had this pass, you would just cash it in and you wouldn't be liable for any bad grade for not doing your homework. So let's pretend that I did that. What do you think the likelihood would be that everyone would raise their hand if I were to start the bidding at $0, meaning it would be free if you would just gladly take this for free? Most likely, most people would raise their hand. So let's pretend, since I know this will be watched by all three of my classes with different class sizes, let's pretend for a second that I have a class size of 15. And I go down, and the first thing I ask is who would be willing to pay $0 for it, right? Maybe 14 out of the 15, because one person maybe says, you know what, I'm actually enjoying reading the book, and or that doesn't excuse me from the discussion, so then I need to go I want to be prepared for the discussion, so I'd have to read it anyway. But let's pretend 14 students had $0 on them and were willing to pay me $0 for that certificate right there. Boom. Now, the second I raise it to 50 cents, we may lose a few people, not so much because of their willingness, but maybe they don't have Venmo and maybe they don't have 50 cents on them, so they are going to bow out. Okay? Now, as I start to raise the price to $1, to $2, to $5, to $10, even those with the ability are slowly going to stop having the willingness. But notice that they already were willing at previous prices and therefore had demand. There is one person out of the 15 who did not have demand for this because they weren't even willing to accept it for free. Okay? So that said, once we get to $10, then only one person will be willing to pay me $10 for this homework exemption. All right? Now, again, in order for them to do that, they would have to have $10 on them. Either hand me $10 or Venmo me $10. Okay. Now, this is, again, a made-up scenario here, so that's just to show you how a demand schedule would look as we slowly raise the price. Fewer people are going to be interested and or able to purchase at the higher prices. Now, let's pretend I upped the ante and I said, you know what? there you only have 3 projects. You can use this on any of them, including the end of semester final project. Again, it had to be redeemed by the end of the year, but you could turn this in and not have to do the final project. Take a second and think what might occur. Do you think people would be willing to pay at higher prices, or do you think it would be relatively the same as a homework exemption? All right, well, if you're like me, and like most students that have done this before, you will see that as the prices rise, more people are willing to pay lower prices, and even some people are willing to pay even higher prices because it's weighted more. All right. Again, though, no matter what I change the price to, we're going to see that over time we're going to, as prices go up, we're going to have fewer people willing and or able to pay at those prices. All right, and let's just for fun said that I had one final example of a final exam exemption, meaning you did not have to take a final exam. Now, I will tell you that the prices I command in the second semester tend to be higher than in the first semester because second semester seniors are willing to do anything to not take a final exam. But as a first semester senior, I'm sure you can relate that this might command a higher price. I think I've even at one point been offered, that little thing at the bottom showed up. I think at one point I'd even been offered $75 to not take the final exam. And this was almost always unanimously one that people would accept for free. So I would likely get all 15 students there to say, you know what, that's a one-time thing. I'd be happy not to take it. Again, though, as we raise prices, we're going to see people have a higher demand, willing and able to pay at higher prices for something that is only going to be assessed one time and will make up a bulk of your grades. Now, unfortunately for you, I'm not offering these for sale, but we're just using them as an example for you to see. All right, so let's post these items and see if you have a demand for them. All right, so after each one, just consider, do you have demand for the following goods? For a pair of movie tickets, you and someone you know, to go see any movie of your choice. All right, how about an awesome Economics Alive textbook? All right, how about some Beats by Dre? All right, how about a Bugatti? How about a flavored carbonated water beverage? Doesn't necessarily have to be kiwi strawberry, but any of the ice variety. How about a slice of pizza from your favorite pizza place? How about a mansion? How about season 3? Did you have demand for that when it came out? That's season 3 of Stranger Things. How about tickets to the 2019 postseason for the Braves? And my all-time favorite, how about a nice pair of orthopedic shoes? Now, if you mentioned yes to any of those previous items, then you A, had to be able to purchase the product, and B, had to be willing to purchase the product. Okay, what that also means is that you're willing to buy the product even if the price changes a little bit. Our willingness and desire are not going to be changed by price. Okay, I do want you to put that in your notes, that our demand is not going to be changed by price. Because remember, demand is our willingness and ability. So our willingness and ability, I should say ability, are not going to be changed by price. So let me show you what that means. All right. So if you were at town hall last year and you took part in the Big Kahoot, one of the questions said, which teacher absolutely loves peanut butter? And that was me. I'm going to use peanut butter as an example throughout Unit 2 because I absolutely love it. And because I'm cheesy, I decided to give you a GIF of Jif. Let that soak in. Okay. So I have a very high demand for peanut butter, and what that means is I would be willing to pay a range of prices for a delicious, creamy jar of peanut butter. Now, just so if you're a crunchy fan, please know I also love crunchy. I do not discriminate. If it's peanut butter, I like it. So let's pretend that I go to Kroger with $10 to buy as much peanut butter as I can. Right? The likelihood is I could probably buy somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 3 jars of peanut butter, depending on the brand and depending on the size. But I can definitely buy more than one. And I'm going to go with $10. I'm going to buy as much as I can. So if the prices were to rise, do you think I could still? Do you think I still can and want to buy peanut butter? Well, yeah, I still have a very high demand for peanut butter. So what has changed? It's not my demand, right? I still have a willingness, I still have ability. The only thing that has changed is going to be the amount I can buy. All right? So if prices fall, am I suddenly going to like peanut butter more? No, I still love peanut butter. I'm just going to be able to purchase more, right? And that's a really important thing to note because there is a term called quantity demanded that I need you to know. So, quantity demanded is how much a person buys at a particular price. Okay? So, if I go with $10 and each jar of peanut butter costs $2.50, then my quantity demanded would be 4. At $2.50, I can buy 4 jars of peanut butter. We're going to ignore tax for a second because we'll make life easier for you and me. So at $2.50, I could buy 4 jars of peanut butter. That's my quantity demanded. All right. Now, if the price, if I could only buy 3, totaling $9.75, then my quantity demanded would be 3. All right. If I could only buy 2, and the total was $8.50, my quantity demanded would be 2. Right. If it was $8.50, then it'd be $4.75 per jar. Right. If I were to buy 100 jars of peanut butter, totaling $9.99, I would weep from joy, but my quantity demanded would be 100. All right. So when we talk about demand, right, what we're looking at is a demand is a range of prices. Okay. The quantity demanded is at any given point or at any given price how much we are demanding at that price. All right. So as the price of a good or service is rising, the quantity demanded will fall. Okay. It's an inverse relationship. So if the price of peanut butter were to raise from $2 to $3, then my quantity demanded might fall from 5 to 3. Right? At $2, I could have purchased 5 jars of peanut butter, and at $3, I can only purchase 3 with a little money left over. Inversely, right, and conversely, as the price of a good or service falls, the quantity demanded will rise. Okay, if the price were at $5, meaning my quantity demanded were 2, and then it lowered to $3, then my quantity demanded would raise to 3. Now notice my willingness and my ability has not changed, even though price is jumping around in these examples. Okay, I still have a willingness and I still have an ability to purchase peanut butter. Okay, so remember, demand is an inverse relationship. Okay? I hope you enjoyed the quantity be really large there. But a lot of y'all are going to forget that as the price of a good or service rises, you're going to say that demand falls. Well, remember, demand is your willingness and ability at a range of prices. So that's not going to change. And that's really important when we get to next week and we start talking about things that will actually change all the ranges of pricing, all your demand at all prices, and those things that will actually encourage you to buy it at a whole new level of pricing is going to it's going to be something that changes that is outside the actual price of that item. It'll make a little bit more sense when we cover it next week. So in your notes, you don't have to put 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 here or up to 7, but I do want you to put price, which will always be on our y-axis here, and quantity, which will always be on our x-axis. You can draw this exact same thing without any numbers on it. And then I want you to draw this line, the demand line. This demand line shows us that at higher prices, right, like right here at $5, the quantity demanded may only be 1. All right, and at $2, the quantity demanded maybe 5. Okay, so as you can see, as the prices rise from $1 up to 5, the quantity that is demanded is going to decrease at any given point, right? The whole line represents a demand line, but only one point on the line is going to represent quantity demanded. Okay, so what I showed you earlier was a demand schedule, right? All the prices for the homework pass, the project pass, and the final exam exemption pass. That was a demand schedule, and you're going to actually be creating one of those in just a bit. Remember, price is always on the y-axis, quantity is always on the x-axis, and as price changes, we would move along the curve. So if this jar of Smart Balance peanut butter, FYI, doesn't matter, I will eat Jif, Peter Pan, Skippy, Smart Balance, as long as it's not like nasty and oily, I will enjoy a nice jar of peanut butter. Let's say a jar of Smart Balance peanut butter changes from $2, so let's say at $2, that's roughly a quantity demanded of about 4.5 jars. Let's say it changes to $4, and at $4 we have roughly 1.5 jars. Okay, we would move from one place on the line right here to another place on the line. Okay, the whole line will not shift because we still have a range of prices that we're willing and able to buy that jar of peanut butter. All right, so here's what I'm going to ask that you and your partner do. Actually, strike that. I want it to be just you. So I want you to think of a good or service that you would be interested in just asking a partner to, or asking a series of people their interest level. Okay, so a couple ground rules. It has to be school appropriate. Okay, predict that people are going to pay $0 to $20 for, because if it gets beyond that, people tend to just make up numbers because we don't often buy things outside of $20 on a daily basis, but we do buy tons of things, especially food, for $0 to $20. And I'm going to ask that you ask 30 people, all right, by class on your block day, and you're going to create a demand schedule, a little T-chart like what we did before. So I'm going to zoom out real quick so I can show you, right? A T-chart just like this, okay? And what I'm going to encourage you to do is to create a range of prices, so between $0 and $10. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a little tally sheet. I'm going to show you what that. I'm going to show you what that looks like right here. So let's pretend that I was asking how much people would be willing to pay for that homework exemption. Maybe that's the thing I'm going to ask people. And I go to my first person and I said, how much would you be willing to pay to get a homework exemption for Mr. Curtis's homework? And they said, I'd be willing to pay $1. So what I would do is I would put a tally in the $1. But remember, if they're willing to pay $1, they're going to be willing to pay 50 cents. And they're also going to be willing to take it for free. All right, so I would start at the 1, then I'm going to go 50 cents and then $0. All right. Now, if that is said, I'm done with that person. All right. Boom. Right. Out of your 30 people, you can ask people in your class right now, once you're done with this video, you can ask them their opinion and knock out 10 to 15 of those 30. All right. Let's say I go to the next person. They say, oh, Mr. Curtis's homework. Yeah. Loving that book, but not loving answering them on Canvas. I'd pay you $5. So I put 1 in the 5. I'd go up here and I would make a tally just like this. Okay. All right. And then I find that one person who says, you know what, I would pay you $10. Okay. Just like this. This is what you're going to do for your homework assignment. But don't forget that you should have most likely 30 marks here in the 0 if you've done it correctly, unless there's someone who says, no, I wouldn't want to, I don't have any demand for that. All right, so your homework assignment is to think of a good that can be, someone would be willing to pay $0 to $20 for, okay? Try not to think of a good that people buy frequently and know the price of. Like if you were to go around and say, how much would you be willing to spend for a tank of gasoline? It's going to be obvious people are going to give you all around the same price. Or if you said, how much would you be willing to pay for a can of Coke? Well, if you've been to the vending machine at Galloway, you know exactly how much a can of Coke costs. So try to think of something that we don't necessarily buy every day. It can be fun. It can be creative. Just make sure A, it's school appropriate, and B, that it's in this price range right here, around $0 to $20. Now, if someone gives you $30, you can mark it down. Don't fret about it, but try to think of something that would likely be purchased in that range. All right, so create a T chart, come up with an idea, and try to start interviewing people. You have 30 people to interview by tomorrow.